So what's up, guys? It is well, I hope you enjoyed the video I put out a little while ago when I was talking about museums and talking about what they did the other night. So this vlog, this video, talking about the TV, TV shows and obviously things that need to change. So it is obviously Friday night and you've got football on tonight. England first game under Thomas Tuchel. Excited to see how they do. We've got Albania, so we should win. When I look at the shows that are on nowadays, it's like it's hard to see what you're paying your TV licenses for. I mean, you look at the weekends, right? There, if you're into game shows and talent shows, you're sort of a sport for choice. But if you're someone that isn't into that sort of thing, like talent shows and game shows and things like that, you're sort of out of luck on a Saturday night because there's not really anything on apart from, game shows and talent shows. I mean, Casualty's on, and I used to watch Casualty every weekend. But I don't really watch it so much now because it just feels like it hasn't, but to me, it feels like it hasn't been that good recently. It feels like it hasn't been that good for a while, if I'm being honest. Um, so I would imagine I would, so I mean, I don't always watch it. I watch it now and again if I feel like watching it. But other than that, I don't really, other than that, I don't. I mean, I don't watch it every week. I think it would be nice if like on a Saturday and a Sunday, if they put on film like some films on, and I mean films that haven't been on hundreds of times before. Because this is the thing, like I know they do put films on over the weekend. Obviously they do put a lot of films on over the weekend, but it feels like the films they put on over the weekend are films that have been on, hundreds of times before, and the films that people have already seen so many times and are not going to want to see again. For example, both of the Willy Wonka films, the 1970s version and the 2005 version. How many times have both of those films been on? Both of those films have been on hundreds of times, and they still put those films on over the weekend, even though they've been on hundreds of times before, and people are not always going to want to watch. It's actually ridiculous. I mean, obviously, I mean, obviously, I use sometimes. Oh, well, I usually watch Gordon Midwife, but obviously, Gordon Midwife is finished now for the rest of the year. Obviously, it'll be back. Obviously, with Christmas special at the end of the year, and you will also obviously have the new series starting early next year, in 2026. So obviously, it has been. I mean, I think that I mean, it's like there's not even any kind of decent sitcoms on anymore. I mean, during the week, things are not too bad. At least you have the soaps on to keep you entertained during the week. But on a Saturday and a Sunday, it's like there's nothing to watch. It feels like there's nothing decent on the telly. It's just game shows and talent shows, and not everyone's interested in that sort of thing. It would be nice, as I said, if they put on a few decent family films that haven't already been on hundreds of times. As I'm sure there's plenty of films they could put on that haven't already been on dozens of times. It'd probably be very easy for them to do that. I mean, obviously, I don't really watch the TV much anyway. If I watch, shows like Haggerty or The Midwife, I only ever really watch them on BBC iPlayer. And that's it really. I don't, I used to watch a lot of shows on CBBC, but a lot of the shows that I used to watch on CBBC are not really on anymore. I still watch the Dumpling Ground every week. Or when the new episodes come out on a Friday, I always watch them. That's one of the series I'm still actually quite interested in on CBBC. Other than that, there's not really anything else I watch on there. I mean, I've been watching Soul Academy, obviously, which has been quite fun to watch. But other than that, other than those two shows, there's not really anything else I watch on there. And even then, I watch both. I watch those shows on BBC iPlayer. Um, I mean, obviously, you know, there are when I think about some TV shows, there are a lot of TV shows I would personally love to see make a return, but they obviously for certain reasons they wouldn't be able to. One of those that always comes to mind, and I think is a very good example of that, is Little Britain. Now I know that there are a lot of people who, like myself, would love to see a show like Little Britain come back. However, we know that obviously times have changed and they wouldn't be able to get away, that obviously David Williams and Matt Lucas wouldn't be able to get away with a lot of the stuff they got away with back then. Obviously, the original three series of Little Britain were on sort of during the early 2000s. And people's views on, I think back then, people's views on racism and and homophobia and things like that were very different back then. That's the problem with Little Britain now, is that a lot of the scenes nowadays would be received very differently. People would have a very different reaction to it these days. It wouldn't, people wouldn't react to it the same way they did back then. People's views on it nowadays on shows like Little Britain nowadays would be very different. It would get used to a lot of stuff nowadays, homophobia, racism, are two of the things that it would probably get, used of quite heavily. Um, I feel like there are a lot of scenes, in the shows that in Little Britain that I think people nowadays would get very offended by. I think one of the scenes I think a lot of people would get offended by is the fat fighter scenes, because in a lot of the fat fighters scenes with Marjorie, you always saw Marjorie making fun of an Asian character. Obviously, the Asian lady Mira, whenever she used to say something, Marjorie used to say it in. Um, and I think if people would, watch scenes like that nowadays, they would probably be quite offended by it. They would probably be, they probably wouldn't, approve of things like that. It's like shows like Benidorm. I mean, Benidorm, and again, people would love to see it come back, but would it get away with a lot of the stuff it used to get away with? Probably not. You know, that's the thing now. It's like times have very much changed, and it's not easy to get as easy to get away with a lot of things these days. And they wouldn't get, and as I said, they wouldn't get, definitely, there's a lot of shows that, you know, would be, people would have a very different viewpoint on these. I think I think obviously, as I said, Matt Lucas and David Williams would certainly not get away with any of the stuff they used to get away with back then. I mean, I think, like that's the saddest thing these days. It's like there's no good. It feels like there's no decent sitcoms on, um, which is a shame. I mean, um, to be honest, I did used to watch Bad Education. Obviously, that's been axed again. Obviously, there was no new series this year. Um, to be honest, I often when I look at a series like Bad Education, I often wonder why they made the decision to bring it back. Because obviously, they made that decision back in probably in around sort of in 2023. So obviously we had the reunion episode in December, and then the new series started at the beginning of that year. Well, no, I think the reunion episode might have even been in 2022, because I know Series 5 was last year. And then Series 6, I think, Series 4, I think, was in 2023, I believe it was. And I think, looking at, I think, I looked at those two. I have watched both series 4 and 5 Bad Education, and both series have made me think, why did they bring it back? Because to be honest with you, I don't think Bad Education was really one of those series that ultimately needed to be revived or needed to be brought back. It had been off screens for 10 years. There was only two or three original characters from that series, from the original three series that were coming back. Those being obviously Stephen Carmichael, Mitchell Harper, and obviously Mr. Fraser, who was now working in the Shorthand team. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Why I don't know. I never understand why they made the decision to bring Bad Education back. But to be honest, for me, Series 4 and Series 5 just felt so bad. Like, they were never going to be as good as the original three series were. Don't get me wrong, the original three series of Bad Education were top notch. And I think people still rate the original three series very high. But Series 4 and Series 5 were just flat, They didn't feel that funny to me. They didn't feel. I didn't enjoy them as much as I had enjoyed the original three series of Bad Education. Obviously, we've got a new series of Not Going Out coming out this year, later on this year. I think filming for it started, if it's not already started. I know it was starting this month at some point. So we'll probably be getting that around about late summer, early autumn. I don't think it'll be before then. As obviously we didn't get a new series last year. They took a break, but we are getting a new one this year, which is good. Um, I mean, when you think of shows like Not Going Out, I mean that next year that obviously Not Going Out will be 20 years old. And you're sort of thinking like, how many more series are they gonna do of that show? To be honest, I can't see it. I can't see it still being as them still doing new series and Not Going Out in 5 years' time. They could very easily be doing. They could very easily be doing. They do that, but I honestly don't know. I mean, I think. I definitely see Lee Mack doing a few more series of Not Going Out before he calls it a day. But who knows? Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. I mean, obviously, TV as I said, TV on at the weekend is just garbage. Like, there's nothing. It feels like there's nothing decent on at the weekend. It's like, as I said, you look at your TV license, you think, why are you actually paying your TV license? It's like, what are you actually paying your TV license for? You're basically paying your TV license for a load of garbage. It feels like a lot of the stuff they put on the TV nowadays is crap. I'll tell you what, right? I was looking at CBBC the other day, and I couldn't believe how much it had changed. Like, CBBC is nothing, like it used to be in the early to mid 2000s. I think that was a very iconic time for CBBC, and it was a time where I was like a 2000s kid, so I grew up in the early sort of mid 2000s. I was watching, there was a lot of shows that I loved watching. Chapel Vision back in the day. There were a lot of, it feels like a lot of the programs you have on CBBC nowadays were never gonna be, certainly nowhere near as good as the shows that were on CBBC sort of in the sort of mid to late 2000s, which is when I think that CBBC was at its best. It was in the mid to late 2000s. I'm not saying there weren't any decent shows that were on in the early 2000s, but it was definitely mid to late 2000s for me. That was more from in a good time. I mean, even CBeebies was so bad. It was so much better back then. I mean, even you won't pay me a tuppence to watch to watch most of the shows they have on CBeebies nowadays. When you look at a lot of the programs they have on CBeebies, it's no wonder kids these days are growing up retarded. You know, I mean, kids were hardly gonna grow up retarded from watching programs like Bannermore and all that back in the day. Those shows were actually good. There was so many, again, CBeebies mid to late 2000s was amazing. There were so many great shows on back then. And you look at CBeebies now, and it's just like, none of those shows will ever be, none of the shows they have on CBeebies now will ever be as good as the programs they had on CBeebies in the early to mid 2000s, in the mid to late 2000s. Even the presenters back sort of in the mid to late 2000s time was so much better than what they are now. You had like Andy, Harry, Alex, you had Kristen Poy. Obviously, then obviously we don't really see Show Me anymore, which used to be a good show on CBs. It's just like, I mean, it amazes me to when I look at shows, but when I look at channels like CBBC and CBBC, and you look at how much they've changed. I really feel like both channels have changed a hell of a lot. It's sad because I feel like none of the shows they have on nowadays are all that good. Give me back the days when we had shows like MI High, Sparkle Mysteries. Those are the days I miss. Is when there were actually decent shows on CBBC that were actually worth watching. Because most of the shows that you have on CBBS and CBBC nowadays are garbage and are straight trash. You know, obviously, they're never gonna be as good as they were in the mid to late 2000s, and it's like it feels like a lot of the shows that were on around that time have been completely forgotten about. Like it feels like people don't really talk about them anymore. You don't really see any. You don't really, it's like they're sort of like they've just completely disappeared. Like no one talks about them anymore. I mean, I'll be interested to see what the new series of Banamori is like. I mean, obviously we don't really know who is and who isn't returning. But the only one that we can guarantee won't be returning for the new series is, of course, Susie Sweet, unless they decide to recast that role, which I honestly don't think they will. But obviously, we know that the original actress who played Susie Sweet, Mary Riggins, unfortunately died back in 2013. So she wouldn't be obviously I think I don't think it would feel right for them to recast, the role of Susie Sweet. I think, I don't think she'll be in it. I definitely think that we'll see characters like Shirley, Archie the Inventor, PC Plum, Edie McCready. I don't know about Spencer and Josie Jump. I would assume they might be in it, unless again they would recast the role of Josie Jump. But I honestly don't know, and I'm also very doubtful about the actor who played Spencer. I think his name was Rod Christensen. I think he's doing a lot of other things now, and I don't think he would have the time to do it. But I definitely see Miss Hooley, Mr. PC Plum, Archie Eventer, and Edie McCready being four characters that will defo return for the new series of next year. I'd love to see them bring back the Tweenies. I feel like the Tweenies would be an iconic show. Would be an iconic show that a lot of people would love to see come back. Who didn't love the Tweenies back in the day? One of the most iconic TV shows of all time that the CB is that CBeebies. That was CBeebies The Tweenies. Unbelievable. So yeah, I thought I would give my thoughts on that. Hope you enjoyed this video today. I'll see you for another one soon. Bye bye.